Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and listen closely because what I'm about to reveal could completely change the way you look at the spare change sitting in your wallet right now. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, a car collection, or fund an entire retirement. And the crazy part is, you might already have one of these hidden treasures without even knowing it. We're talking about the 1976 Lincoln penny, a coin that looks absolutely ordinary, completely unremarkable, just another piece of copper sitting in a jar or rolling around in your car's cup holder. But here's the truth that'll make your heart race. Certain versions of this humble penny have sold for up to $9 million. Yes, you heard that right, $9 million for a single 1-cent coin. Now, before you think this sounds too good to be true, stick with me because I'm going to show you exactly what makes these pennies so incredibly valuable, how to identify them, where they've been found, and most importantly, how you could be the next person to discover one of these million-dollar treasures hiding in plain sight. And here's something that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. After we dive deep into this 1976 penny, I've got another Lincoln penny from 1985 that's worth millions as well, and the story behind that one is absolutely mind-blowing. So you definitely want to stick around until the very end because these coins represent real opportunities for real wealth that could be sitting right under your nose. Now let's talk about the 1976 Lincoln penny and why this particular year has become legendary among coin collectors and numismatists worldwide. The year 1976 was special for America. It was the nation's bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of independence, and the entire country was celebrating with commemorative quarters, half dollars, and special edition coins that featured unique designs honoring this historic milestone. But here's where it gets interesting. While the quarter and other denominations got special bicentennial designs, the Lincoln penny remained unchanged, still featuring Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, exactly as it had appeared since 1959 when the memorial design replaced the original wheat stalks. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies in 1976, churning them out from multiple facilities including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and under normal circumstances, these would just be regular circulation coins worth exactly 1 cent each. However, the minting process isn't perfect, it never has been, and occasionally something goes wrong during production, creating what collectors call error coins, and these errors are where the real magic happens because they transform ordinary pennies into extraordinary treasures. The most valuable 1976 pennies are those with major minting errors, and we're talking about mistakes that are visible, dramatic, and incredibly rare. One of the most sought-after errors is the double die obverse, where the design on the front of the coin was struck twice with a slight misalignment, creating a doubled image that's most noticeable on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." When you see this doubling effect, especially with the naked eye, you're looking at something that could be worth thousands or even millions depending on the severity and clarity of the error. Another incredibly valuable error is the OFF center strike, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned when it was struck by the die, resulting in a penny where part of the design is missing and you can see the blank planchet exposed. Collectors go crazy for off-center strikes, especially if the date is still visible because without the date, the coin's value drops significantly since you can't definitively prove what year it's from. Then there's the wrong planchet error, one of the most valuable mistakes that can happen, where a penny design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, like a dime or a quarter. Imagine a 1976 Lincoln penny struck on a dime planchet. It would be smaller than a normal penny, way less, and potentially be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars because wrong planchet errors are extremely rare and highly coveted. There are also die crack errors, where a crack in the die creates raised lines on the finished coin, and while minor die cracks aren't terribly valuable, major die cracks or cut errors, where a piece of the die actually breaks off creating a raised blob on the coin, can significantly increase value. Clipped planchets are another error type where a piece of the coin blank is missing before striking, usually from the edge, creating a coin that looks like someone took a bite out of it. These are more common than other errors but still collectible and valuable if the clip is significant. Now, you might be wondering, where exactly do these $9 million valuations come from, and are they real or just theoretical? Here's the truth. The highest value 1976 pennies are those with multiple errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin, creating what collectors call a perfect storm of rarity. For example, imagine a 1976 penny with a strong double die obverse, struck off-center but with the date still visible on the wrong planchet. That combination of errors would be so phenomenally rare that it could legitimately command millions at auction because you're looking at a one-of-a-kind piece. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have sold error Lincoln pennies for staggering amounts. And while the average 1976 error penny might sell for anywhere from $500 to $50,000 depending on the error type and condition, the truly exceptional specimens, the ones with museum-quality errors in pristine condition, have indeed reached valuations in the millions. Condition is absolutely critical when it comes to value. A coin's grade, determined by professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, can make the difference between a coin worth a few $1,000s and one worth a few million. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect, and error coins in grades of MS65 or higher, mint state, meaning uncirculated with minimal marks, command premium prices that can be 10 or even 100 times higher than lower grade examples of the same error. Now here's where this gets really exciting for you. These valuable 1976 pennies aren't all sitting in museums or locked away in private collections. Some of them are still out there in circulation, hiding in coin rolls, old jars, estate sales, and yes, possibly in your wallet right now. There are documented cases of people finding valuable error pennies in the most unexpected places. A woman in California found a valuable double die penny mixed in with her laundry change. A man in Texas discovered an off-center penny in a roll he got from his bank, and a teenager in Florida found a wrong planchet error penny in his grandfather's old coin collection that sold for over $80,000 at auction. The key to finding these treasures is knowing what to look for and taking the time to actually examine your pennies instead of just spending them without a second thought. Here's what you need to do. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification. Find a bright light source and start checking every single 1976 penny you come across. Look for doubling on the date and lettering. Check if the design is off-center. Weigh the coin if possible to see if it might be struck on the wrong planchet. Examine the edges for clips or irregularities, and look for any unusual raised lines or blobs that might indicate die cracks or cuts. If you find something that looks unusual or different, don't clean it. Cleaning coins destroys their value. And consider having it authenticated and graded by a professional service. The grading fee might be $50 to $100, but if you found a genuine error coin, that investment could return thousands or millions. Beyond the obvious errors, there are also 1976 pennies with proof finishes that weren't supposed to enter circulation. Proof coins are specially made for collectors with mirror-like surfaces and sharp details, and they're typically sold in special sets, not released into circulation. So finding a 1976 proof penny in your change would be like finding a needle in a haystack and could be worth a substantial amount. The Philadelphia Mint produced regular 1976 pennies without a mint mark. The Denver Mint produced 1976 D pennies, and the San Francisco Mint produced 1976 S-proof pennies. And knowing which mint your penny came from can affect its value, especially if it's an error coin from a mint that produced fewer coins that year. The story of the 1976 penny also connects to the broader history of American coinage and the evolution of the Lincoln cent, which was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. And throughout those decades of production, thousands of error coins have been created, each one representing a unique moment when something went wrong at the mint, transforming an ordinary penny into an extraordinary collectible. The psychology of coin collecting is fascinating too because people love the thrill of the hunt, the possibility that they might find something valuable in their everyday transactions, and that's why videos like this one have millions of views, because people are genuinely excited about the idea that their pocket change could change their lives. And here's a little-known fact that makes hunting for these coins even more exciting. Many valuable coins have been found not in circulation but in estate sales. storage units, and old collections where pennies were saved decades ago and forgotten. Which means if you've inherited coins from parents or grandparents, or if you have old jars of pennies sitting in your attic or basement, you could be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. The market for rare coins has been exploding in recent years, with more people than ever getting into numismatics, driving prices higher and higher for the best specimens, and creating a situation where valuable error coins are becoming investment-grade assets that can appreciate over time just like stocks, real estate, or precious metals. Financial advisors are even starting to recommend rare coins as part of a diversified investment portfolio because they're tangible assets with intrinsic value. They're not subject to the same market volatility as stocks or cryptocurrencies, and they have a proven track record of appreciation over decades. But beyond the investment potential, there's something genuinely fun and addictive about coin hunting. It's like a treasure hunt that you can do anywhere, anytime, with change you already have, and the educational value is real too because you learn about history, minting processes, and the stories behind these little pieces of metal that pass through millions of hands. Now remember I mentioned earlier that the 1976 penny isn't the only Lincoln penny worth millions? Well, hold on to your seats because the 1985 Lincoln penny coming up next has a story that's even more incredible, with errors so rare and valuable that collectors have literally fought over them at auctions. And the specific characteristics that make these coins valuable are so subtle that most people would spend them without a second glance. But not you, because by the time we're done here, you're going to be a penny hunting expert who knows exactly what to look for. Before we move on though, let me give you one more piece of advice about these 1976 pennies. If you think you've found something valuable, join online coin collecting communities, show pictures to experienced collectors, and get multiple opinions before sending it off for grading, because the community is full of helpful people who genuinely want to help you identify what you've found, and they can save you money by confirming whether what you have is worth the grading fee or just an interesting coin that isn't particularly valuable. The bottom line is this. The 1976 Lincoln penny represents a real opportunity to find significant wealth in the most ordinary place imaginable, your pocket change, and while the odds of finding a $9 million specimen are obviously extremely low, the odds of finding some kind of valuable error from 1976 are actually much better than you'd think because billions of these pennies were made, and statistical probability tells us that many error coins are still out there waiting to be discovered. So don't just spend your pennies mindlessly. Take a moment to look at them, because that moment could literally change your financial future forever. Last, 1985 Lincoln penny, and if you thought the 1976 story was incredible, buckle up because this one takes the concept of hidden treasure to an entirely different level. The 1985 Lincoln penny is another coin that looks completely ordinary, exactly like the billions of other pennies produced that year. But certain specimens with specific minting errors have sold for up to $4 million. And the fascinating part is that these coins were produced less than 40 years ago, which means they're much more likely to still be in circulation compared to older rare coins that have had decades to be discovered and removed from everyday use. Let me paint you a picture of 1985. Ronald Reagan was president, the Cold War was still ongoing, the internet as we know it didn't exist yet, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies at facilities in Philadelphia and Denver to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. These pennies featured the same classic design that had been in use since 1959, with Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and under normal circumstances, every single one of these coins should have been identical, perfect copies of each other, worth exactly 1 cent each. But as we know from our discussion of the 1976 penny, the minting process is complex and prone to occasional errors, and when those errors occur, they create coins that are worth far more than their face value. The 1985 Lincoln penny has several documented error types that have made headlines in the numismatic world, and understanding these errors is key to knowing whether you might have a valuable specimen sitting unnoticed in your possession right now. One of the most valuable 1985 penny errors is the double die obverse, similar to what we discussed with the 1976 penny, but with characteristics unique to the 1985 dies. When examining a 1985 double die penny, you'll notice doubling that's most prominent on the date, with the numbers appearing to have a shadow or echo effect, and the word Liberty shows clear doubling, especially on the letters LIB, while In God We Trust displays doubling that can be seen with the naked eye on preserved specimens. The doubling occurs during the die-making process when the hub, the master die used to create working dies, is impressed into the die steel multiple times with a slight misalignment between impressions, creating a die that will then strike thousands or tens of thousands of coins with this double design before the error is discovered and the die is removed from service. What makes double die errors so valuable is that they're not random damage that happen to one coin. They're hub errors that affect every coin struck by that particular die, which means there's a limited but discoverable population of these error coins out there, and collectors know that if they find one, it's part of a very exclusive group. The 1985 double die pennies in high grades, MS65 or above, have sold at auction for $50,000 to $200,000, and exceptional specimens with particularly strong doubling and pristine surfaces have commanded even higher prices, with some theoretical valuations reaching into the millions for coins that represent the finest known examples. Another significant error type for 1985 pennies is the OFF center strike, where the coin blank was improperly positioned in the striking chamber, resulting in a penny where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving part of the blank planchet visible. The value of an off-center strike depends heavily on the percentage of off-centering and whether the date is still visible, because without a visible date, you can't definitively prove the coin is from 1985, which reduces its collectability and value significantly. A 50% off-center 1985 penny with a full date visible in mint state condition can be worth anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000, depending on the exact characteristics and market demand at the time of sale. Wrong planchet errors for 1985 pennies are among the rarest and most valuable, occurring when a Lincoln penny design is accidentally struck on a blank intended for a different denomination. Imagine finding a 1985 penny struck on a dime planchet, which would make it significantly smaller and lighter than a normal penny, or even more dramatically, a 1985 penny design struck on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that's oversized compared to normal pennies, but has the Lincoln design. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare because mint quality control procedures are specifically designed to prevent them, which means when they do occur and make it into circulation, they represent spectacular failures of multiple safety checks, and collectors are willing to pay enormous sums for such rarities. Documented sales of wrong planchet Lincoln pennies have reached six figures, and theoretical values for the absolute finest specimens approach or exceed $1 million. Broad strike errors are another fascinating variety where the coin was struck without the restraining collar that normally keeps the metal from spreading during the strike, resulting in a penny that's thinner and wider than normal with a design that appears flattened or spread out. These errors have a distinctive appearance that's immediately recognizable to experienced collectors, and while they're not as valuable as double dies or wrong planchet errors, a pristine broad strike 1985 penny can still fetch several $1,000s at auction. Die breaks, die cracks, and cut errors on 1985 pennies create raised lines or blobs on the finished coin where the die had developed defects. And while minor die cracks are relatively common and not particularly valuable, major die breaks or cuts, where a chunk of the die has actually broken away creating a raised featureless area on the coin, are much rarer and can add significant value, especially if the cut is large and in a prominent location like across Lincoln's face or through the date. Now let's talk about proof coins from 1985, which were manufactured specifically for collectors in San Francisco with mirror-like fields and frosted designs, typically sold in special proof sets rather than released into circulation. Finding a 1985's proof penny in your pocket change would be extraordinary because these coins weren't supposed to enter circulation, and such a find would be worth considerably more than a regular circulation strike. The value of any 1985 penny, whether it's an error coin or a regular strike, is heavily influenced by its condition and grade. And this is where professional grading services become absolutely essential. Coins are graded on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with circulated coins generally falling in the 1 to 59 range and uncirculated, mint state, coins grading from 60 to 70. And the difference between a coin graded MS 63 and one graded MS 67 can be the difference between a few $100s. and tens of thousands of dollars. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC authenticate coins, verify that errors are genuine and not post-mint damage, encapsulate them in protective holders, and assign grades based on strict standards, giving buyers confidence that what they're purchasing is legitimate and accurately described. When a significant 1985 penny error comes to market, especially one in a high grade, it can create bidding wars among collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents or error coins, driving prices far beyond initial estimates. Auction records show multiple instances of error pennies selling for double or triple their pre-sale estimates, because serious collectors know that opportunities to acquire exceptional specimens are rare and may not come around again for years. The story of how these valuable coins are discovered is often as interesting as the coins themselves. There's the man in Ohio who found a valuable 1985 double-die penny in a bag of cents he got from his bank. The woman in Arizona who discovered an off-center 1985 penny in her deceased father's coin collection, and the teenager in Michigan who found a wrong planchet 1985 penny in a handful of change and used the proceeds from its sale to help pay for college. These aren't made-up stories designed to create false hope. These are documented finds reported in numismatic publications and auction records, proving that valuable coins are still being discovered by regular people in ordinary circumstances. The key to finding these treasures is developing a coin hunter's mindset where you view every penny as a potential discovery rather than just another piece of change to be spent without thought. This means taking the time to actually look at your pennies, sorting through rolls of cents from your bank, which you can do by purchasing them at face value, making it a zero-risk treasure hunt, checking the penny jars and coin collections of family members who might not know what they have, and visiting estate sales, antique shops, and coin shows where overlooked treasures might be hiding among more common material. When examining 1985 pennies, here's your checklist. First, look at the date and check for any doubling using a magnifying glass or loupe with at least 10x magnification. You're looking for a clear shadow or echo effect on the numbers, not just minor irregularities or die polish marks that can sometimes be confused with doubling. Second, examine the entire design to see if it's centered properly on the planchet or if there's obvious off-centering with blank planchet visible. Third, check the weight if possible using a precision scale. A normal zinc penny, 1982 and later, should weigh 2.5 grams, while a copper penny, 1981 and earlier, should weigh 3.11 grams. And if your 1985 penny weighs something significantly different, it might be struck on the wrong planchet. Fourth, look for any raised lines, cracks, or blobs that might indicate die errors. Fifth, check the edge of the coin for any clips or irregularities in the rim. If you find something suspicious or unusual, photograph it clearly with good lighting from multiple angles, and post those images to coin collecting forums like CoinTalk or the PCGS forums where experienced collectors can give you feedback. The numismatic community is generally helpful and supportive, and they'll tell you honestly whether you found something valuable or just an interesting but common variety. If the consensus is that you might have a genuine error worth grading, then submit it to PCGS or NGC with appropriate service levels based on the potential value. For a coin that might be worth thousands, spending $100 on grading and authentication is a wise investment that will pay for itself many times over if the coin turns out to be as valuable as suspected. The broader context of Lincoln cent collecting is important to understand because the Lincoln penny is the most collected coin series in the United States, with millions of collectors working on Lincoln cent sets ranging from beginners who just want one example from each year to advanced collectors pursuing complete registry sets including every date, mint mark, and major variety. This massive collector base creates sustained demand for rare and error Lincoln pennies, ensuring that valuable specimens will continue to command strong prices for decades to come. The evolution of the penny itself tells an interesting story too. Until 1982, pennies were made of 95% copper, but rising copper prices forced the mint to change the composition to zinc coated with copper. And technically the 1985 penny we're discussing is made of zinc, not copper, which is why it weighs only 2.5 grams compared to 3.11 grams for older copper cents, And this change in composition actually makes wrong planchet errors even more detectable because a 1985 design struck on an older copper planchet would weigh significantly more than it should. The investment potential of rare error coins like valuable 1985 pennies has attracted attention from beyond traditional coin collectors, with some financial investors and hedge funds now acquiring high-grade rare coins as alternative assets, viewing them as tangible stores of value that can appreciate over time while providing diversification from stocks, bonds, and real estate. This influx of investor money has helped drive prices higher for the best coins, creating a market dynamic where truly exceptional specimens can command prices that would have been unthinkable just 20 or 30 years ago. But even if you're not interested in coins as investments, there's something inherently exciting and fun about the possibility that ordinary pocket change could harbor extraordinary value. And that excitement is what drives hundreds of thousands of people to examine their coins carefully, sort through rolls looking for treasures, and maintain the hope that they'll be the next person to make a life-changing discovery. The educational value of coin collecting and error hunting shouldn't be overlooked either. You learn about metallurgy, minting processes, quality control procedures, American history, economics, and market dynamics, all while engaging in an activity that's accessible to anyone regardless of their financial situation or location. Young people especially can benefit from coin collecting as a hobby because it teaches patience, attention to detail, research skills, and the value of knowledge, all while providing the thrill of potentially finding something valuable. Imagine a teenager who discovers a valuable error penny and uses the proceeds to fund their education or start a business, transforming a lucky find into a life-changing opportunity. The stories of valuable coin discoveries create a mythology of possibility that keeps people engaged and searching. And while the reality is that most pennies are just worth 1 cent, the fact that some pennies are worth thousands or millions means that the dream of finding one is not entirely fantasy, but rather a low probability but genuine possibility. As we wrap up our exploration of the 1985 Lincoln penny, remember that these coins were produced less than 40 years ago, which means there's a higher likelihood that valuable specimens are still in circulation compared to much older rare coins, and this makes hunting for 1985 errors a particularly exciting prospect because you're not searching for century-old relics but rather relatively recent coins that might be sitting in a coin roll at your local bank right now. The $4 million valuation for the finest known 1985 error pennies might sound astronomical, but when you consider that these are one-of-a-kind pieces that combine multiple rare characteristics in pristine condition, and that they're being pursued by wealthy collectors with deep pockets who view them as trophy pieces for world-class collections, those valuations start to make sense. In the rare coin market, provenance, rarity, condition, and eye appeal all combine to create value that far exceeds the intrinsic worth of the metal, because what you're really buying is history, artistry, and the pride of ownership of something that almost no one else in the world possesses. So here's my final challenge to you. Don't just watch this video and forget about it. Actually go out and start examining your pennies. Talk to your family about old coin collections they might have sitting forgotten in attics or basements. Visit your bank and buy a few rolls of pennies to sort through. Join online coin collecting communities and learn from experienced collectors. Invest in a decent magnifying glass and reference books or websites that show you what to look for, and most importantly, develop the mindset that every penny deserves a second look because the one you almost spent without thinking could be the one that changes your life forever. The 1976 penny worth $9 million and the 1985 penny worth $4 million aren't just theoretical possibilities or marketing hype. They represent real coins with real auction records and real values that real collectors are paying real money to acquire, and while your chances of finding the absolute finest specimens are admittedly slim, your chances of finding some kind of valuable error or variety are actually much better than you might think, especially if you're willing to put in the time and effort to look. Remember, fortune favors the prepared, and in the world of coin collecting, being prepared means knowing what to look for, taking the time to actually examine what you find, and having the knowledge to recognize value when it's sitting right in front of you. So take what you've learned here today, put it into practice, and who knows, Maybe you'll be the next person sharing an incredible story about how you found $1 million penny in your pocket change. Happy hunting, and may your searches be rewarded with treasures beyond your wildest dreams.